Welcome. I'm Michael Cottingham, and I'm an herbalist from Silver City, New Mexico. And today we're going to talk about rosemary. And today's January 10th, and if you noticed in the beginning of this segment, there was some of the blossoms, the light purple-ish blossoms of rosemary were actually in bloom. And down here in Silver City, New Mexico, we get snow, we get rain, we get lots of dry time, but it's pretty amazing to see a few blossoms on this particular plant in the early part of January. But rosemary is perhaps one of the most widely used spices slash herbal medicines in the world, and often when I say that, hey, this particular plant is in the top 5 of the most important plants, or the top 10 most important plants, one of my criterias for that a plant can fall into that category is actually how widely spread is it? How ubiquitous is it to the world? Can the majority of people find it and have access to it? I would say that rosemary, without a doubt, is in the top 10 most important medicine plants, simply because it's effective for a variety of different illnesses and diseases. But the fact is that it can be found in almost every country in the world, and at the very least it can be found in people's kitchens and in their spice cabinets throughout the world. And it's also readily available in almost every store in the world that sells food and spices and such. So rosemary is a very commonly found plant throughout the world, but it holds some very important medicinal aspects. Been used for thousands and thousands of years, and there's a lot of literature written about rosemary as far as its medicinal uses and spiritual uses and such. But rosemary is one of its most common names. Its Latin name is Rosmarianus officinalis, as the little sign over there says. But it's a member of the mint family member, and it can be there's Arabic names for it. There's endless different names for this plant. In the Mexican herbal tradition, it's called romero, and widely used, and definitely in the top 5, maybe in the top 3 of the most widely used of the Mexican herbal traditional remedios or remedies. We use rosemary we use the leaf of rosemary, or the little sprigs, the little leaf twig ends of rosemary, but predominantly the leaf is what you find in spice jars. But when we're collecting it as a medicine to make a fresh plant extract or dry plant extract, or drying some for salves or oils, or collecting some to make an essential oil, we use the little flexible and not too woody little branch ends. I use the leaf as well as the flexible stem when I'm making medicine, especially if I'm making fresh plant extract or collecting some for making an essential oil. There's a lot of medicine, a lot of essential oils, and a lot of medicine value in the not so woody stems. You don't necessarily want to go way down deep into the plant and get the real woody, gnarly pieces, woody, gnarly stems. You want to stick to mostly the fresh leaf, the fresh sprigs, so to speak. We can use it in a variety of different ways. We can make a fresh plant extract, a dry plant extract. We can dry some of the leaf and twigs for salves and oils. We can use the leafy twig parts for essential oils. We can dry some of the sprigs to put into baths, into our bath water, or to make a tea, a large pot of tea from the sprigs, and then strain that into your bath. But the The versatility of this plant is that we can use it in almost every herbal pharmacy technique that exists for the most part. Some of the medicinal aspects of this plant are the fact is that it's a very effective vasodilator, helping to dilate the tiny little capillaries. But it's also, chemically, it's very rich in bioflavonoids. And these bioflavonoids are very helpful in strengthening capillaries. So not only do you get an immediate vasodilating medicine, which is good to improve circulation, but you also get a series of flavonoids that actually will strengthen the capillaries so that in time you have a better circulatory system, especially with the tiny little capillaries that are hundreds and hundreds and if not thousands of miles of tiny little capillaries spread throughout our body. And that's where a lot of activity takes place, a lot of nurturing to tissue and a lot of waste removal. There's a lot of gas exchanges. There's a lot that happens in the capillary highway. So having a strong capillary system and taking herbs that actually strengthen the capillaries, and those are usually herbs and foods that are rich in flavonoids and bioflavonoids, and rosemary happens to be one. So some of the uses that you can utilize rosemary for is like for capillaries that are super tight, capillaries that are extremely constricted, and this may lead to having a headache. Certain types of migraine headaches respond really well to vasodilation. Tension headaches. When you have a capillary constriction within the body, there's a lot of illnesses and diseases and a lot of impaired function that takes place. So having something that's a vasodilator is very important in helping to improve circulation. Most illnesses and diseases stem from a stagnant blood flow or a stagnant condition. So like herbs that actually create blood flow and herbs that actually create better circulation are very, very important, because since most illnesses and diseases, especially chronic illnesses and diseases, are from stagnant conditions and lack of blood flow, having an herb that actually increases blood flow, especially in the capillaries, allows us to use it in a variety of different situations. Rosemary, because of its, almost everybody has smelled or tasted rosemary to some degree, and the aromatics coming off this plant are very antibacterial and antiviral. So not only do you have a plant that is a vasodilator and improving blood flow, you have a plant that actually brings the essential oils to areas that might be infected with a bacterial or viral infection. So it makes rosemary really good in improving sinus circulation, respiratory circulation, and delivering an array of essential oils that actually might actually kill the bacterial or virus that's actually creating that particular infection in that part of the body. So rosemary is vasodilating, it's antibacterial, it's antimicrobial, it's good for expanding blood flow. It has many different chemical constituents that have been studied and that are very distinct for killing a whole variety of bacteria, including staph. So rosemary becomes a very effective anti-staph as a strong tea used to wash or to bathe a staph wound or a wound that's infected by the staph bacteria. Another category that we give to this plant is as an herbal nervine or a relaxing or sedative plant. Its sedative qualities are quite distinct, very relaxing, and especially in the culture that we live in the 21st century here, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of impaired blood flow. So taking an herb that's actually vasodilating and improving and moving more blood through the body, and a plant that has constituents, chemical constituents that actually are relaxing to the nervous system is an ideal remedy. I would consider rosemary a top-rate anti-stress herb, because when we have stress in the body, we have impaired circulation for the most part. We have supertension, we have constricted capillary function. So it's like almost like the perfect remedy. It's relaxing, it's vasodilating, it stimulates the immune system in ways to fight viruses and bacteria. There's an interesting aspect to rosemary in regards to the nervous system. There are constituents and some of the flavonoid action within rosemary is very, very effective in rebuilding the myelin sheath over the nerve cells. And the myelin sheath is predominantly responsible for protecting the nerve cells from erratic signals and to tempering various aspects of pain. So not only is rosemary a vasodilator, an herbal nervine, a plant rich with flavonoids, a plant that actually can help rebuild the myelin sheath. Rosemary has a history throughout the world as being used as sort of a anti-witchcraft herb, or a herbal medicine to dispel negativity, or a protection plant. So in the Mexican herbal tradition, the curanderos and the brujos, the curanderos or curanderas are kind of like your classic good herbalistas, good herbalists, midwives. They're healthcare practitioners. When you hear the word brujo or bruja, this refers to like more of like a negative connotation, more like a witch kind of, especially a brujo, a male witch is, or bruja, a female witch. That is not necessarily a traditional healer. They're more up to mischief and more up to negativity. And so in the Mexican herbal tradition, rosemary has been used extensively for protection against the brujo or brujas, and against the witches. And they often will burn it sort of as an incense, or they will make really strong batches of tea and wash down things in their house, their doorknobs or the windowsills, or they'll put some on themselves, or they will carry a sprig of rosemary for protection against negative thoughts, or negative energy, or malicious witches who in the Mexican herbal tradition and in Latin America are extensively believed in and are quite prevalent in the culture. So rosemary, or romero in that tradition, was used to protect against witchcraft and negative energy that might be coming at you, a spell or a hex or bad thoughts that were placed upon you. I know when I owned Bear Creek Herbs in Silver City, New Mexico, I concocted a lot of different remedies and potions, and learned a lot from the older Mexican traditionalists, the Mexican grandmas who would come in and ask me if I had romero and if I knew about it. And they told me many stories over the years of how to use this plant in protecting. And one of the classics is this old Spanish grandma, this old Mexican grandmother, coming into the herb store and buying a bunch of dry rosemary to make a strong tea so she could bathe her doorknobs, because a neighbor had come and visited her, and she felt that her neighbor was actually leaving negative vibes or leaving a hex on her house. So she wanted to protect her house before anybody entered, and so she would use rosemary tea and bathe her doorknobs and sprinkle some in the yard and to protect her house from people carrying negativity or carrying negative witchcraft-like types of vibes. You'll find this used in the southwest of the United States all the way down to the tip of South America, used as a remedy to ward off evil spirits and witchcraft. I've used this a lot with a lot of clients and help the clients acquire rosemary, and even have taught them how to use this in preparations to warding off mean, and that goes back thousands of years too. I mean, rosemary was used. Rosemary has a nickname as the herb of remembrance. So a lot of people, students in ancient Greek times, would wear wreaths or headdresses, or carry rosemary so that they could remember, during exams and during test times, or they could remember what they were being taught. It was used for newlyweds to carry rosemary, or have rosemary involved in the wedding ceremony to remember one's vows to one another. It has a history of being used as the herb of remembrance. And if you think back to what I was talking about as far as vasodilation goes, improving blood flow improves memory. Improving blood flow improves circulation. And this this physiological event can definitely improve your memory, because people who have impaired blood flow, especially in the capillaries, often experience more mental befuddlement and confusion and less clarity in their thinking. So the fact that rosemary enhances vasodilation and better blood flow, especially to the brain. I mean, I guess they say that 25% of our blood at any given moment is in our head, or in our brain. And so the lack of blood in our brain is definitely will lead to the lack of memory. So it's the herb of remembrance. There's so many aspects to this plant, and so to slightly recap, it's a extremely safe and effective vasodilator. And I guess if there was a contraindication, you might not want to use it in the first trimester of pregnancy, where in the Chinese tradition they consider pregnancy like a stuck blood condition. So you want to hold on to that stuck blood condition, especially during the first trimester. But later on, rosemary could be used with no concern. It mostly has no contraindications, or no obvious chemistry that is detrimental for the majority of people who might want to use it as a medicine. And definitely small amounts as a spice are probably inconsequential to one's health as far as a detrimental aspect goes. But rosemary is an extremely effective vasodilator, especially and predominantly only for the capillaries. It's an herbal relaxant, it's an herbal nervine, so it alleviates stress and tension. It has constituents, the flavonoids, and other constituents that are very effective in rebuilding the myelin sheath. So it's up there with with herbs like lavender and St. John's wort and lemon balm as far as its effectiveness for strengthening and rebuilding the myelin sheath, which is a very important aspect in when long-term stress has set in on the body. It actually weakens the myelin sheath. So that's a very important aspect. It's extremely antibacterial and antiviral. It's strong enough as an antibacterial that it's used as a spice to preserve things like sausages and meats, and it can keep colonies of common bacteria from making things go rancid and making things rot. So it's effective against the lesser aggressive staphs, as a wash or as an extract or as a tea taken internally. It's used as a protective plant against negativity and witchcraft and evil intent that's being projected at you. This plant is good at holding its own and warding off evil. I know that when I was traveling a lot all around the world, I had a big, beautiful rosemary plant that was growing outside of the back door of Bear Creek Herbs, and I planted it there for medicine, but I also planted it there for protection, and there's a lot of stories as to why I did that. But anytime I would travel out into the outer world or leave the country or go to places, I would always stop at the back of the herb store and back at that rosemary bush that was growing out back, and actually pick a sprig before I left the country or left on a travel somewhere for protection, because I truly believe in such things, and especially when you practice within the Mexican herbal tradition and get to know the herbalistas and the culinarios and sort of adopt their tradition and adopt some of their beliefs. I find it's nice to have a talisman or a protection plant, or at least a plant that I can focus on and think it's protecting me, and create focus within myself, thus creating my own protection by using this as a talisman, so to speak. It's ubiquitous and common throughout the world, and one of the plants that I would find, when I would arrive in Africa or arrive in Europe somewhere, or Australia or South America, when I'm walking about and I'm thinking, trying to recognize plants and medicine plants, and it's like, what grows here and what could I use as a medicine? I would never fail to find a rosemary shrub growing nearby or growing on my travels, and I would always note where it was growing, and was always happy and content the fact that I have found a medicine plant in a foreign country that I'm extremely familiar with. Thus, I have one. So that's why it's in the top 10 of the most important herbal medicines, because it's common throughout the world. And no matter where you go, if you know this plant as a medicine, if you're used to using it and you've made medicines from it and used it with yourself and people, then no matter where you go in the world, if you see a rosemary shrub, you instantly have a medicine plant that you can utilize. That's just a little bit about rosemary, and it's a very, very effective plant for a variety of different. You can read about it a lot. There's probably days worth of literature out there on the internet and in books and such, and days worth of reading and studying about. But that's just a little bit of my relationship with this plant, and thank you for listening.